Hidden cause number 11, why you still have low thyroid symptoms even though you're taking medication and even though your lab tests are, quote, normal. Hidden cause number 11 is a progesterone deficiency causing depression of an enzyme called TPO. So what is TPO? TPO stands for thyroid peroxidase. It's an enzyme in your thyroid gland, and it's one of the enzymes you use in order to manufacture T4 and T3. So if you don't have good activity of this enzyme, then over time you're just not going to make enough T4 and T3. Well, how does progesterone play into that scenario? Well, progesterone actually upregulates TPO function. So here's what happens. When a woman goes into her second half of her menstrual cycle and she ovulates, there's a surge of progesterone. This surge of progesterone causes an uptick in the activity of TPO so that you make more T4 and T3. This is why a woman has an increase in her body temperature when she ovulates, because there's a surge of progesterone. That progesterone affects TPO in the thyroid gland, and that ultimately increases her metabolic rate and the temperature increases. So what happens when you don't have enough progesterone? Well, when you don't have enough progesterone, it's pretty simple. TPO activity goes down, and then therefore the amount of T4 and T3 you make goes down. Now here's a key thing I want you to know. When a woman doesn't have enough progesterone, there's some symptoms you can have, and I'm going to explain those in just a second. But what I want you to understand is this is not a situation where you can capture this on lab tests. This is why a lot of times you'll go to the doctor and have low thyroid symptoms, such as depression, hair loss, weight gain, have a hard time getting restful sleep, high cholesterol, infertility, constipation, brain fog. You can have all those symptoms, go to the doctor, they can run your thyroid panel, and you can say, looks pretty normal to me. And if you have this hidden cause for those low thyroid symptoms, there's not much they're going to pick up on lab work, because when a woman is not making sufficient progesterone for her needs, it may not necessarily be reflected in a T4 or T3 or TSH that's below or above the lab range on blood work, which is why this is definitely a hidden cause, because the doctor that you're working with has to be able to recognize that you've got progesterone symptoms along with low thyroid symptoms. So what are the typical low progesterone symptoms? Well, a lot of them have to do with menstrual cycle and getting pregnant. So here they go. So the first thing you can have if you have low progesterone is you can have just irregular periods. Second thing you can have is menstrual cramping. Then you can have water retention before your period begins. Then you can have heavy menstrual bleeding, migraines in the second half of the menstrual cycle, early miscarriage, infertility, and depression. I mean, if you look at all of those, and then one more, breast tenderness. So if you've got 3 or 4 of those, and you've also got low thyroid symptoms, then progesterone interacting with thyroid peroxidase, TPO, in your thyroid gland, that could be a mechanism for you. So the real kind of important thing is, well, what do you do about any of this? Well, the first thing to know is that progesterone, the most common cause that that we see for low progesterone in a woman, is not a well, I was going to say it's not a deficiency in external hormones, meaning just because you have low progesterone signs, that doesn't mean that you have to take progesterone, okay? The most common cause for low progesterone is a woman that's having depressed luteinizing hormone in the brain from a stress response or a blood sugar problem. So really, if you want to boil down to it, you can have low thyroid symptoms that we've already just named and low progesterone symptoms that are ultimately being caused by blood sugar instability, okay? Meaning you've got high blood sugar or low blood sugar or just up and down, or you're having a chronic stress response. That's a little bit beyond what we want to talk about today, but the takeaway is this. Whoever you're looking at, whoever you're working with, they need to be able to recognize if you've got progesterone symptoms, low progesterone symptoms, and if you've got low thyroid symptoms, because first of all, a couple of those overlap. Infertility is a known complication of low thyroid, as well as miscarriage and depression. Those things overlap. So what your doctor's got to be able to do is ask the right questions, do the right detective work, and see if this makes sense for a mechanism for you. And the next step would be figuring out, okay, what are you going to do about it? So I'm not a big fan of people taking hormones unless, of course, they absolutely need them. And I got to tell you that most women that I've seen, that I've come into contact with, they didn't need to actually take, progesterone in a prescription or progesterone in a supplement. What they needed to do was work on blood sugar, and that's a whole other topic for another day. But the takeaway is this. Hidden cause number 11 could be, for you, that you've got a progesterone deficiency or progesterone insufficiency causing a down regulation of TPO, which is why you can't make any thyroid hormones. So you need to find someone that can understand and knows how to look for both.